Hi students, how's it going? It's Pete Posner here at Big Break English, your British English teacher. And in today's lesson, we're going to look at the type of IELTS writing task 2 essay that says, do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? We're going to do this in 4 steps, okay? Firstly, we're going to look at the instructions, okay, to this type of task. And then we're going to look at generating ideas. Third, we're going to look at the overall structure of this type of essay. And finally, we're going to write each paragraph together with a model. Okay. And by the way, if you need extra help on IELTS Writing Task 2, you can download my free ebook, 12 Tips for Scoring Higher on IELTS Writing Task 2. Down in the description of this video, there is a link. Okay, so let's get on with today's lesson. Okay, students, so first thing to do, let's examine the task instructions. Okay, so you can see a couple of pictures here. You don't get pictures in the test, but here we have a picture of an e-reader, right, with an e-book, and we have a paper book, right? And the task says, in recent years, more and more people are choosing to read ebooks rather than paper books. Okay, so the task starts with a general statement, as in most of the task 2 essays start this way in the instructions. And then it says, do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? Okay, so the key thing here is that it's asking you a question, right, which requires an opinion. Okay, so it's like saying, do you think that the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? What is your opinion? Okay, so you have to therefore state your position, right? But also you have to, in order to do that, in the essay, discuss both the advantages and the disadvantages, right? And then which outweighs the other, okay? Okay, now let's go on to generating ideas. Okay, so think of a few advantages and a few disadvantages before grouping them into 2 main ideas. Okay, so the danger with this type of essay is that students have the tendency to list advantages in one paragraph and list disadvantages in another paragraph without really developing ideas. Okay, so that's why I would emphasize here grouping them. So grouping the advantages into a main idea and grouping the disadvantages into another main idea. Okay, for example, so here are some advantages, right? So ebooks are cheaper, they are more interactive, they are more accessible, they are more ecological. Now, that's important, but I crossed that one out because I decided that it was a different idea. If you look at the others, right, they have something in common, right, that they are beneficial in education. Okay, so that would be, I decided that was the main idea of my paragraph, right? So that groups the other 3, okay? And I did the same with the disadvantages, right? So ebooks are less perceptible to the senses. They have less sentimental value. You can't write in them in your own handwriting. And so I thought, okay, what do these ideas have in common? Ebooks are less personal. Okay, so that was my other main idea. Okay, so let's look at the overall structure. Okay, so as always, my advice is to keep it simple. Okay, so you could consider this structure, right? Again, 4 paragraphs. This is always advisable because when it comes to the 2 main paragraphs, right, 2 and 3, you want to make sure that you have enough development in each paragraph. So that's why I always suggest that 4 paragraphs is a good number. Okay, so that way each of those 2 will be long enough. Okay, so introduction, paraphrase the topic, state your position and outline your essay. Then paragraph 2, disadvantages, discuss the disadvantages. Paragraph 3, advantages, discuss the advantages. And finally, 4, conclusion, briefly conclude by summarizing your main ideas. Okay, students, so we're going to look at each paragraph now, starting with writing the introduction. Okay, so first step is write a general statement, excuse me, paraphrasing the one in the task. Okay, so we need to look at the task again, right? So it said in recent years, more and more people are choosing to read ebooks rather than paper books. Do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? Okay, so we need to paraphrase this first sentence. Okay, so remember that when you paraphrase, think of 3 things, right? So one is look for synonyms, right? Another is change the form of words. And finally, use different sentence structures. Let's have a look. So here, this in recent years, I've changed this to lately, okay? And then it's more and more people are choosing to read ebooks, right? I've changed completely the sentence structure. There has, that's a little mistake, it should be there has been, right? A sharp increase in the number of readers, right? And who are opting for ebooks, right? And then this part, rather than paper books, so the rather than I changed to instead of, okay? Oh, and a couple of things I forgot. For example, I changed people for readers, okay? And I changed the verb choosing, so choose, and the form choosing for opting, okay? So those are a couple more synonyms that I used. Okay, so the next step in the introduction is state your position and outline what you are going to talk about in the essay. Okay, so here it's possible to do this in one sentence, right? So here in my example, and in my opinion, right, so that signals my position, right? So anything like this, in my opinion, in my view, for me, I believe that. Okay, so some kind of introductory linker to state your position, right? The educational benefits of ebooks surpass the drawbacks in terms of their lack of character. Okay, so what happens here is that I'm also giving the outline, right? What I'm going to talk about, yeah, because I've mentioned basically the content of my essay, right? So the reader knows that first they're going to see the educational benefits, um, or not necessarily first, okay, but one paragraph is going to be about the educational benefits, right? So of ebooks, and the other paragraph is going to be about the lack of character, right? The disadvantages, right? And notice here also, you want to avoid repetition, right? So there are other words for advantages and disadvantages, right? So here we have benefits, right? And drawbacks, right? Or you could use, instead of these, you could say pros and cons, right? Or pluses and minuses. Okay, so remember to vary the language, use synonyms, right? Oh, and another synonym I forgot to mention, I used surpass instead of outweigh, which was in the task instructions. You want to avoid repeating words from the task instructions. Yeah, remember, paraphrasing is a very important principle in IELTS writing. You could also use overcome, right? Or you could use compensate for. Okay, students, so let's move on to the first main paragraph. Okay, so here, give an opening topic sentence that summarizes the disadvantages of ebooks, right? Because remember, you want a main idea, right, for this paragraph, and that main idea is going to be stated in the first sentence. Okay, so for example, admittedly, ebooks are less personal than paper books in various ways. So this is the topic sentence, right? And the reader knows that this paragraph is going to be about the lack of character, right, of ebooks, right? And that the reader knows that he or she is then going to look at different ways that ebooks lack character. Okay, and the other thing to mention here is you can use a nice link word like admittedly, right? Or it is true that. These two link words show that you're making a concession, right? Remember that one of the paragraphs is like the other side of the argument, right? Not your opinion. So in my case, I believe that the advantages outweigh the disadvantages. So my disadvantages paragraph is a concession. It's not my opinion. It's just me looking at the other side of the argument, right? So admittedly, or it is true that, that's a nice way to point that out to the reader, okay? Okay, and then after the topic sentence, then you're going to give supporting ideas with explanations and examples and or details. Okay, so I'm just going to read through to you my paragraph and talk to you a little bit about using the linkers here that I've underlined, right? Because the linkers will help you to make sure that you are explaining your ideas, right? That you are giving examples, details. Okay, so here goes. First, okay, so pause there a second. So do you remember that the topic sentence says, right, ebooks are less personal than paper books in various ways. So we can use linkers to signal these different ways. Right, so first, the first way, right, they lack individuality, being less perceptible to the senses. That is, okay, so that is introduces an explanation, okay? Unlike paper books, they do not have a particular smell and they are less tactile than the traditional format that offers the possibility of flicking through the pages using your fingertips. Also, right, so another way, right, they have less sentimental value since, right, so this since introduces an explanation. Although people can give each other ebooks as gifts, they lack the private messages written in their own handwriting that paper books offer. Besides, right, so yet another way that ebooks are less personal, they do not age in the same way as the latter, which grow old along with their owners, acting as memory prompts. For example, okay, so give an example. How do they act as memory prompts, right? When an elderly person opens an old and tatty book, this may bring back fond memories of a time and place when they first read it, as well as loved ones they shared it with. Therefore, so sometimes, especially after an example, it's a good idea to link it back to the topic sentence, right? And that can be done with linkers like therefore, right? Therefore, while a paper book is almost like a living organism, an ebook is rather like a characterless machine, right? So that links back to this idea that ebooks are less personal than paper books. Okay, so now on to the second main body paragraph. Okay, so again, give an opening topic sentence that summarizes the advantages of ebooks. So this time it's the advantages. Okay, so here is my topic sentence. However, ebooks are powerful educational tools. Okay, so the reader knows that this paragraph is going to be about how they are powerful educational tools with some explanations, some examples. Yeah, but the paragraph is going to be about how they are educational tools. Okay, and notice the linker here, however, right? Because now we're talking about advantages before we talked about disadvantages. Okay, so we can use a linker to contrast, right? And this is nice also. It links back to when we used at the beginning of the previous paragraph, we used admittedly, right? Or it is true that we made a concession. We looked to the other side of the argument, but now we're giving our opinion. So we say, however, right? My opinion is, yeah, or could be nevertheless or nonetheless, right? So any of these linkers are a great way to contrast your opinion with the other side of the argument that you previously gave. Okay. Okay, as you did in your second paragraph, in the third paragraph, after the topic sentence, give supporting ideas with explanations and examples or details. Okay, so here's the rest of my paragraph. Okay, again, I'm going to go through some useful linkers with you, right? First, okay, so again, this marks in this case, the first way that ebooks are powerful educational tools, right? In comparison with paper books, they are more accessible to students as, right, introduces an explanation. They are cheaper to produce, and therefore, is nice to explain, why that is important. Why is it important that they are cheaper to produce? Well, therefore, their prices are lower and more affordable, as well as the fact that there are often free copies available online that students can share. This accessibility is also, right, so another way that accessibility is enhanced, right? When we consider that a large number of ebooks can be stored in a device that a student can carry around, which, okay, so it's nice to use which in a relative clause, right, after a comma, to add information, extra information that explains why something is important, right? In this case, the fact that a large number of ebooks can be stored on a device that a student can carry around, right? Which makes studying more effective, right? And since explain why it makes studying more effective, the student can benefit from having more material available at any time and in any place. Finally, okay, so the last way that I'm going to talk about how books are powerful educational tools. With the rise of e-readers, in some ways reading ebooks is more interactive. Okay, and here, for instance, I'm going to introduce an example. Okay, so in the other paragraph we had for example, we can vary it with for instance. Okay, remember the comma. For instance, with the Amazon Kindle, you can digitally underline and make comments in it before sharing them with a high number of online contacts, as well as rapidly accessing a variety of dictionaries to look up new words just by touching them. Okay, so just to summarize, when you write the rest of your paragraph after the topic sentence, use linkers, right, to make sure that you are giving supporting ideas, right? So first, that's the first supporting idea. Also, right? Um, Finally, that's the last supporting idea. All right. Introduce explanations, right? With as, yeah, with since, um, which in another clause, a relative clause, right? And examples, right? With for instance, or for example, right? Or case in point is, right? Okay, students, finally, writing your conclusion. So briefly conclude by summarizing your main ideas, right? Start with a nice linker to introduce your conclusion, right? In conclusion, in sum, to sum up, or all in all, right? Okay, so here's my conclusion, right? All in all, while ebooks lack the more human aspect of paper books, okay, so here I'm summarizing the main idea of the second paragraph, right? This is more than compensated. There you go, that's that linker. Do you remember we said outweighs, right? Or compensates for, right? Or surpasses or overcomes, right? This is more than compensated for by the fact that they are very beneficial in education. Okay, that's the main idea then of the third paragraph. Okay, due to their accessibility and interactive nature. Okay, so the two main reasons why they are beneficial in education, right? And that's the summary, that's the conclusion. Okay, students, that's the lesson for today. Okay, so we looked at this type of task 2 essay, right? Do the advantages outweigh the disadvantages? We looked at this in 4 steps. Okay, so just to summarize. Okay, so first, recognize that this type of essay, in the task instructions, it's asking for your opinion. It's asking you to discuss the advantages and the disadvantages, but also to give your opinion on which outweigh the other. Okay. Second, right, um, generating ideas. Okay. Avoid lists of advantages and lists of disadvantages. Try to group them in main ideas. Okay. Third, have a nice simple overall structure. Okay, 4 paragraphs is fine, right? So that way you have 2 main body paragraphs, one with the advantages and one with the disadvantages. Okay, and well, finally, when you write your essay, think about these linkers. Okay, so using these linkers, they make sure that you give examples, that you explain things, right? Also, we looked at these useful linkers for uh, giving concessions, right? Do you remember? So we had admittedly, right? Or it is true that, right? And then in our paragraph, our opinion paragraph, right? We had however, right? Nevertheless, nonetheless. Okay, so yeah, practice using these different linkers. Okay, so I hope you found that helpful today, right? And if so, please like the video and please share it and please subscribe so you can get more of these videos. Okay, and remember to, if you haven't already, download my ebook, right? The link is in the description. 12 tips for scoring higher on IELTS writing task 2. That's going to be really useful for you. Okay, and I'm looking forward to the next video. Okay, so see you next time. Bye bye.